Welcome to our program, General Dominique Trinquand.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
French President Emmanuel Macron is trying to create a coalition of European states who could deploy peacekeeping forces to Ukraine in case of a ceasefire deal between Ukraine and Russia. What is your take on such idea, and do you believe that such initiative could bring the war closer to its end?
Yes, I think it's time to think about a ceasefire. I'm not talking about peace, but a ceasefire on the ground. And probably with the arrival of Mr. Trump at the White House, there will be pressure after the 20th of January on both sides to have a ceasefire. To apply the ceasefire, you need to have forces on the ground. There will be no US forces on the ground. It's a US decision. But then, if you've got European forces on the ground, this will help Kiev not to be alone, to have this sort of guarantee on the ground, and to show to Russia that, in fact, the border of Europe, the future Europe, because Ukraine will enter Europe, will be on this ceasefire line. So I think it will be very useful at the time, at that time for Kiev, of course, but at the same time, it means that during the negotiation between Moscow, Washington, and Kiev, the European will be present because they will put ground force on the ground, so they will be part of the negotiation aside with Kiev.
From your perspective, how many troops would be needed to enforce such a ceasefire deal and to patrol this demilitarized zone between Ukrainian forces and Russian forces? Would it be able for European states to do this without American troops on the ground?
In terms of number, of course, the line is very long. It is not a question of having soldiers in the trenches. It's a question of having observers and units ready to react if there is a problem. On this 1,000 kilometer line, probably, I think that roughly 50,000 troops will be necessary, and European countries are able to provide these 50,000 troops.
From your perspective, what can happen if Russia attacks such troops? Do you feel that there is a need to prepare a mechanism of the enforcement of this deal and proper instruction about what such troops should do in case of Russia's attack?
I think, of course, there is a need for safety for these troops, and the safety of these troops will be provided probably by NATO, because it will be an indirect action of NATO protecting European troops which are part of NATO. This will be probably the most difficult point to negotiate with Russia.
Do you feel that Vladimir Putin can agree with such terms, can agree with deploying European troops to Ukraine from your perspective?
I think that the negotiation will be difficult. Russia, of course, is gaining ground now, but is suffering enormous losses. So he needs to negotiate. The terms of negotiation depends on the way Mr. Trump will use force to obtain this agreement. And I think at the end, if he wants to have a ceasefire with Putin, he will understand to Putin that, of course, he's occupying part of Ukraine territory. This should be sufficient for him to stop that, and probably afterwards to negotiate what will be the peace in the future.
And do you feel that Trump's administration will be able and would like to put pressure on Vladimir Putin to force him to negotiate in good faith and to end this war, or at least reach a ceasefire on appropriate terms for Ukraine?
I'm not sure that we are speaking about good faith. We are talking about effect on the ground. And I think that Mr. Trump will understand very freely that the leadership of US is at stake here. And so he has to prove that he's the leader of NATO, the leader of the free world. And so he has to make Mr. Putin understand that he has no choice than to stop the war. As I said, it will not be peace. So there will be lots of discussion afterwards. But to stop the war, I think that Russia also needs to stop the war.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin today had participated in major press conference, and also he said that he would be ready for a compromise with Ukraine regarding the war against Ukraine, and he said that Russia would be ready to conduct negotiations. Do you see this as a sign that Russia is ready to negotiate a ceasefire?
Yes, I think it's really a sign that you want to negotiate. Of course, he wants to show that it's a Russian victory. So saying that the occupied part of Ukraine was already annexed by Russia in September 22. And so for Ukraine, it will be difficult to accept that. But may I say, as a French perspective, that we have lost Alsace-Lorraine for 50 years, which was occupied by the German. And in 1918, we recover Alsace-Lorraine, and now it's part of France. So we need time to understand that the changes are not already the end of the story.
Do you expect the peaceful settlement of the war, full peaceful settlement, a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia? Do you think that it could happen only after Putin's departure from power?
I think that the ceasefire can arrive quickly. The peace deal will be longer. Mr. Putin is 72 years old. You know, I don't know if in 5 years' time he'll be still there. Anyway, we need to discuss with Russia in order to have a peace for the long term in that part of Europe.
Also, from your perspective, what are the main factors which force Vladimir Putin to negotiate a ceasefire, high rate of casualties on the ground, and bad economic situation in Russia, or the influence of Western sanctions and international pressure, or just pressure from the inner circle of Russian dictator Putin, pressure from Russian allies?
I think that the casualties, the rate of casualties can't be sustained for a long time by Russia. Or he have to mobilize. And of course, we know that he doesn't want to mobilize. Second thing, the economy is in bad shape. And so the inner circle of Mr. Putin will say, okay, we need to stop now if we don't want to have major problem inside Russia in the next years to come. And so I think that the pressure is there.
Do you believe and do you think that a ceasefire could be reached next year?
Oh, certainly. I think that the ceasefire will be reached in next spring. First, because Mr. Trump wants to have very quickly a ceasefire to show that he is able to obtain that. Second thing is that Ukraine needs that because Ukraine is in a difficult position. And thirdly, because Russia can't sustain this war for more than a year. So we have to stop at the time where he's still in a good position before being in a bad position.
Is there a chance that something could go wrong and the ceasefire would not be reached next year?
Of course, you always can have problems during the negotiation. A major massacre, for example, somewhere, or use of major. I don't think about nuclear power. I think about a major attack from the Russian, for example, on on the decision makers in Kiev, for example, could be a major change in the perspective of Western country. But I think that everybody has the interest of stopping the war by spring 2025.
As you just mentioned, Vladimir Putin and Kremlin has been threatening to attack decision-making centers in Kyiv and to even eliminate Ukrainian political leadership. Do you see this as another threat just to raise stakes before the negotiation process, before negotiations?
No, I don't think that there will be a major attack like that, because it will not be in the interest of Mr. Putin, because all the Western country will no longer compromise with him. I think that he wants a different way. He wants to discredit the president of Ukraine. He has already said that he will not negotiate with him, but with the Rada, meaning that for him, president of Ukraine is not legitimate. And by that way, you want to make fragile the leadership in Ukraine.
Also, Russian senior general, head of the Russia's nuclear and chemical forces, General Igor Kirillov, has been killed in Moscow. There are some publications that Ukraine's security services could be involved in such assassination. How can you assess this act by the Ukrainian intelligence? And do you see this as another sign of increasing development of Ukraine's intelligence capabilities?
Well, certainly Ukraine has difficulty on the ground in Donetsk mainly, but he has another way to fight war with long-range missile, for example, and drones at the back of the forces, which is a success, and also special services like that is a success. We need to understand that currently Russia has problem to control inside Moscow, which is incredible, but also geopolitically with the failure of Russia in Syria. So I think altogether, Russia understands that they are a failure and it can't sustain this war for so long.
Do you feel that such attacks on Russia's chain of command just make Vladimir Putin more weaker?
Yes, certainly. Certainly, a lot of the leaders in Russia will say we are not safe. We can be killed. And so we need to stop that because we'll be killed, certainly.
Let's cover also the fall of the Bashar al-Assad regime. Russia could not help Bashar al-Assad to stay in power in Syria. Moreover, Russian troops have withdrawn from the Syrian military bases. What are the main factors why Vladimir Putin failed to help Bashar al-Assad to stay in power in Syria?
I think that the Russian government was very successful in 2015 in supporting Bashar al-Assad. But now Russia is not able to fight war on two different directions, on two different territories, like in Ukraine currently and in Syria. So that's why he was not able to support Bashar al-Assad, to put more power side on Bashar al-Assad, and also because Iran was no longer able to do it. So it's a big, major defeat for Russia. We'll see in the future what will happen in Syria with the two Russian bases, the naval and the air force base, with the discussion of HTS, the current government in Syria. But anyway, the Bashar al-Assad defeat is a defeat for Russia too.
President Zelensky said that Vladimir Putin could not help Bashar al-Assad because all his troops are engaged in the war against Ukraine. Is he right?
Yes, he is right. He is right in the fact that Russia is able to fight one war at the same time, which is the war in Ukraine. it is not able to fight a second battle elsewhere.
And do you feel that Vladimir Putin would have to deploy thousands of troops to Syria to help Bashar al-Assad to stay in power?
No, he will not do it. It's a defeat. I mean, Bashar al-Assad is out. There is a new government in Syria. We'll see what happens in the next month in Syria. But anyway, it's a defeat for Russia. The only thing that Russia can do is negotiate to maintain its bases in Syria. And I don't think that the current government in Syria will accept that.
So your prediction is that the current Syrian rebels will not agree with Russia's military presence in Syria?
Yes, I think they clearly stated that Iran was an enemy and Iran was the friend of Russia. So I don't see them accepting a sovereign base in Syria. What they will accept is a progressive withdrawal from these bases. Already, lots of equipment are sent back by Russian airplanes to Russia and to Libya. So I think that the next base for Russia will be in Libya, alongside with Marshal Haftar.
I would like also to cover the next year, 2025. The Economist reported that 2025 would be a year of negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. How do you see the next year in terms of negotiations? Do you believe that Trump's team will have a pro-Ukrainian position during such negotiations? And what is your take on the Kit Kellogg's position on Ukraine, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia?
I think that the first step will be the ceasefire. When there will be a ceasefire, there will be negotiation. But this negotiation can last very long because, of course, Russia will ask to the withdrawal of the different sanctions put forward by US and Europe. And I don't think that they will accept to withdraw the sanction if there is no real peace plan. So it will take a long time. And we never know when there is a ceasefire, how long the ceasefire will be maintained. But at the same time, this will stop attacks on the energy system, for example, of Ukraine. And Ukraine can start rebuilding several things. So I think that is what will happen in 25, but things will not go very fast, I'm afraid.
Also, from your perspective, if there is a ceasefire deal between Ukraine, Russia, the United States, and European allies, do you expect the West to return to business as usual with Russia?
I think it will be progressive, but anyway, we will have to work with Russia in the future. I don't know how long Mr. Putin will stay there. I mean, the government of Russia is the problem of the Russian. The Ukrainian government is the problem of the Ukrainian, which will be part of Europe. And we'll need to fortify this democratic system within Europe. And if Russia at one stage will want to discuss freely with this part of Europe, they will be free to discuss that. But it will take time after this war.
Do you feel that another packages of security guarantees or of security assistance, of weapons, could be provided to Ukraine to deter Russia from invading Ukraine again in the future?
As I told you, if you've got European troops on the line of ceasefire, you will have a guarantee that these troops are providing security to Ukraine and that NATO is providing security to this troop. So it's an indirect guarantee.
Thank you, General Trinquand, for your time and for your interesting answers and for your support for Ukraine and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you very much.